Game over. It is game over.
Game over, cancer. I'm Val Solomon, Director of Program Impact at Cannonball Kids Cancer Foundation.
And I'm Dana Nichols, Executive Director of CKc.
Game Over Cancer, a podcast dedicated to exploring conversations about pediatric cancer research, solutions, and inspiring family stories.
We're a nonprofit dedicated to creating innovative treatment options for kids fighting cancer and educating for change.
By creating a space for these conversations, we empower the community to take action and provide tangible hope.
Game over, cancer. Screw you, cancer. Well, today we have the most interesting guest in the world. She's gorgeous and adorable, smart, funny.
Are you done?
Okay. It's me.
Today's episode, that's enough. Today's episode is all about what it takes to be a lifer in nonprofit. We'll talk about what it takes to have a 15-plus year career in philanthropy. We'll talk about the gift of helping people find their potential in a mission. And we'll find out why people say, I could never do what you do all day. But we're very excited to have Dana Nichols with us today in the studio.
So please stay tuned for this great episode.
Well, welcome to Game Over Cancer. I am so excited for our guest today.
Who is it?
I don't know. No one else showed up. No, I'm kidding. She has nearly 2 decades of dedicated service as a nonprofit administrator in Central Florida. She is passionate about fostering meaningful connections between individuals and causes. As the executive director of CKc, she leads with a commitment to making a tangible impact in the fight against pediatric cancer. She is driven by a profound belief in the transformative potential of connecting people with their passions to create positive change. You know her, you love her. Please welcome my boss, Dana Nichols.
You know her, you love her because she does payroll. It's Dana.
I still do get alerts, and I will send her like the little Paycor thing comes through. I'm like, thanks, boss.
Love being paid on time.
I love it. It's one of my favorite things that you do is pay me.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Okay, first question.
Okay.
Can I have off on Friday?
Sure. Are you going to the beach?
Okay. In preparation for this, we mostly just chatted about, how it is that a person gets so much experience and spends a lifetime in the nonprofit sector.
Yeah.
So I was hoping you could tell us how your nonprofit story. How did you grow up in nonprofit?
Yeah. Well, I think like anything, and we hear this from our researchers sometimes, is like the path is not a straight line. I moved up to Orlando to go to UCF. I am a proud alumni. And when I was there, I really liked mass communications. I love creating things. But I really wanted to save the world, which if you ever meet anyone who goes into nonprofit, unfortunately, that's why we're all here.
Yeah.
And so I took a lot of public administration, nonprofit management, women's studies classes at UCF, and mass communications. And kind of dove right in, had an internship at a place called the Beta Center. The Beta Center was an Orange County public school in partnership with a nonprofit for teen girls who were moms. And so there was a full daycare and had some any kind of amenities and things they needed. There was also housing for moms with no place, young moms with nowhere to go. And I was a development assistant. So mainly even, back then working on fundraising, really seeing everything and thought it was so cool. Right. And, as many a nonprofit story goes, there was some transition at the time. So
as there always is,
there's always a job, y'all. But all that to say that there was this beautiful empty office. It was the nicest office I had for the first 10, 12 years of my career. And I was 18, 19 years old, just typey in this beautiful office with a window. And I was like, oh, I am living life. And then one day they sent out an all call to all the interns that they had needing some help in the daycare. And so a lot of volunteers come in to hold the babies. And that day there was just not a lot of volunteers, and they needed some people to hold the babies until school got out. And I thought, this only gets better. What a perk, because I love kids. And so I went and held the baby. It was the tiniest baby I'd ever seen. And as a mom now, think, oh, that was a 12-week-old baby I was holding. A 12-week-old baby, and we sat in the rocking chair, and then the school bell rang. And the mom came to get the baby, and the mom looked like 3 years younger than me, 4 years younger than me. She could have been my little sister, and honestly, she could have been me, right? Like, we are all so one step away from wherever we are, of all those things we push so far away. We really are so close. And so everything kind of went away in my head, like all the joke of, and not joke, but the levity of sitting in this beautiful office and pretending to go to work and all these things. And I was like, oh, okay, this is why I'm here.
This is what I'm doing.
This is what I'm doing, because this is very real, and this is very real for everyone and anyone. There wasn't much I could separate of why this little girl had a baby and I didn't. There wasn't much I could separate of why I was like living my college dream and going to be the businesswoman, and she was a teen mom trying to finish high school. And honestly, maybe she was finishing middle school, because I don't know. That really solidified a lot for me, that I was in the right place, but that it was also going to be a lot harder than I thought, because it just blew my mind. And I haven't had that experience again, but I've had that experience 50 more times in my career. Working in a children's advocacy center and sitting with a child who's there as a suspected victim of abuse, working in theater and seeing a theater full of different children with different needs that we've provided an experience for the first time, and like just continuing to get my mind blown about how I can sit at a desk and do some work that really serves people in a valuable way. And also, I have not yet saved the world. I've given up that that ethos. And honestly, I say that because when you say, well, how do you get to be a lifer, or how are you still here doing this? To some extent, I think you can stay in it once you can realize, I alone am not saving this planet. I am not saving the world. And that doesn't take away from what I can do every day, and just take the next step, which we talk about a lot. But in my circle and in my spheres of influence and in my world, I can get up and do the best every day, and it's going to impact those around me, and they're going to impact those around them. And that's the common theme with Cannonball too. So I just feel like, again, this serendipitous alignment with getting to come work here and live my values really out loud now as the leader.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's no coincidence, right? That's the path that CKc has gone down under your leadership, which is, connecting people with the thing they can do in a very overwhelming topic, a very overwhelming mission. And so you answered probably 3 or 4 of my follow-up questions with that amazing answer. But I think that that's something that when you work in this field for a very long time, that you have to, like you said, you have to figure out, you're not going to save the world, but how do I stay in this? Mm-hmm. And I know you've heard this too, but where people will just say, I couldn't do what you do all day.
Right.
And there are a lot of jobs that I could not do all day. I am very aware of it. Right. But what does that mean when someone says like, oh, I can't, I would struggle. You do this so well. It comes easy.
Right.
What are the experiences that you've had over your nonprofit career that have made it seem easy in a struggle?
And I've heard all that 1,000 times. And then my favorite is, you could go work somewhere else and make so much more money. I'm like, I think nothing that looks easy ever is, right? I think when I watch an incredible movie, it probably was more work than I could ever imagine.
Right. Yeah.
I almost just said if I watched sports, sports seem hard.
I think they practice.
They probably practice. So I think, a mantra that I really live by is consistency compounds. And so for me, the time, the depth of, just continuing to come and show up every day has compounded for me, where some things do get easier. And I think sometimes things shift, right? Because I think along with I couldn't do what you do, another favorite standby we get is I don't want to ask people for money.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, break that down, because I don't really want to ask people for money either.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is connect someone's passion to a project where they can really feel valuable.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to do is help our researchers get their message out so that people know what they need, because it's a problem we all want to solve. And so I think what keeps you in it, what makes it easier, is spending enough time to realize the core of why, rather than the outside of, yeah, it is sometimes uncomfortable to stand on a stage and ask people to give, or sit one-on-one and ask someone to do that. But when I back up about all the things I love about connecting people, and connecting people to missions that they can really feel like they're doing great work because they are, that feels really good. And if that's 90% of what I'm doing, and then 10% is the part where I come and sit down and ask you for money, that's the discomfort may ease a little, or at least I know this feeling because I've had it before, and I know the feeling is worth the payoff of when we're able to fund grants or whatever project I'm trying to fundraise for at the time.
Yeah, I think that's so profound, and it speaks to me and my journey through nonprofit life as well. I think we see a lot of people who leave the field, whether that's their background is in fundraising or in program, if they're working with clients directly.
Yeah.
It's like 2-3 years before you see enough scenarios to know, to feel like you're confident in knowing what to do. And that can be you're having a conversation with a major donor, or that could be I'm with a client, and it takes a while for you to feel comfortable in yourself and your decision making and your experience to be able to say, I've got this, I've seen it before. Even if it doesn't turn out the way I want it to, or I was hoping, we're still going to be okay. And I think that takes, 5 years at least. And that's a long time for someone to go out on faith that I'm actually doing something, when sometimes it feels like you're just not living up to the pressure you put yourself on under working for a mission you care about. Because I think the other thing is that people who do really well in nonprofit are working for missions that they believe in.
Yes.
So the stakes are high.
Yeah.
So how have you moved through that? Because I know you also really care about things deeply. You really care about missions. And we've talked about realizing you can't save the world, but how do you maneuver through that? And now that you're a leader, you have to help your team maneuver through that as well. So how do you help folks to navigate that?
I think it's really important to me that wherever I'm working is a mission I truly believe in. And that's kind of an easy out, right? But at the same time, there are so many wonderful things. And there are causes I even can donate to, but go, well, I don't know that that's where I want to work. I believe in this cause, but that's not, what lights me up every day. So I think that's your first step there. I mean, whether you're publicly going to go out and sell this mission, or I'm going to lead a team in a mission, then I know I care so deeply. And like you say, that's a double-edged sword, because then I'm a person who wants to do well and wants to succeed, as we all do. But then I also believe in something so deeply that I know it needs to succeed. And so that's hard. And I think I try to keep things in perspective. I say a lot to everybody, we're playing a very long game here. So a no today or a no from one person isn't a no from everyone. That new things take time. And again, that consistency will compound, but also just knowing every bit of growth or every step we take can move where we need to go. So a lot of times when I think if I was having a hard day, and I use this as an example, we're recording this in the summer. the summer's hard. Everyone's on vacation, different times, not the whole summer.
Right.
Everyone's doing their things. And so it's not a huge fundraising time for us, but we're preparing for the fall. And so we don't have a lot of money coming in. At times we have a lot of money going out, and I can get nervous. But I try to, at this point, think, okay, what does 30 days from now look like? What does 60 days look like? What does 90 days look like? And I can think of a lot of great things that are going to happen in the next 3 months. And so we're just going to keep the faith in that every step we take in a budget, in a plan for a year, is going to get us to those outcomes. And sometimes they don't, right? Because even then, your best laid plan could still fall short. And then we're going to get up and do it again. Because I think that having any success is because we've had some failure. We got to figure out what works, and we've got to adapt. And so you can't have 100% success every single day, even though I would love to.
Yeah.
What a great life that would be. So I think it's just keeping all that in perspective. And I hope, I believe I'm a leader that sets that tone for our team. And I, like you said, it takes you so long to know if this is the right field. How do I handle this? What does this look like? And even sometimes we have newer members on the team, and I've done this in other jobs as well, where I'm like, okay, so this is a thing that's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
And
this is always a problem. Not a problem, but this happens.
This is some adversity we face.
Yeah.
And maybe that's okay and you can push through it, and maybe it's not. And I'm not saying, hey, if you can't get in this, hit the road.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure everyone knows this may not work for you. And it's okay to say that, because I think part of the pressure of working in nonprofit is, how am I going to walk away from being I work in a field that's supposed to be curing cancer.
We didn't solve the problem
yet.
How can I? Yeah.
Or how is that going to look to other people that I walked away from this mission? And the truth is that it's really, really hard. And I don't want anyone to burn out or have so much stress and pressure that, because they're supposed to fit this box that doesn't fit. Because I know I couldn't work at every mission. So my expectation is not that everyone can work at ours. But I think the idea of, if this is working, let's keep moving forward. And if it's not, let's call it what it is so we can find the right people that align. That all works for me.
Right. I don't want your job to wear on you to the point where you feel sick. You know what I mean? Like, nobody wants that. And if you are worried, even with good intentions, right, that you're not doing what needs to be done, or that you're not supported or whatever, there's so many different weird things that can happen in nonprofit that could cause someone to be like, it might be time to move on. And I think I know I've seen it, but I think we have a lot of experience in nonprofit sector where people just hang on and they're burnt out.
It's hard.
It's not good for you. It's not good for anybody else. It's not good for the mission. So
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's hard. I think that it's just an extra standard or stigma when you're in a helping people field, right?
Yes.
And so, it doesn't even have to be nonprofit. We see that with teachers a lot. It's like people wait and they're so burnt out, and they love the kids they teach, or they love what they're doing, or they're supposed to. But there are so many systemic factors, and that's exactly how this is. So it doesn't have to be for everyone, or this specific place is not for you and I want you to find your fit, or this specific role.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing too, because we're usually much smaller organizations, and one job requires you to have a lot of skill sets. I think that's awesome. I love that, because I love to do a bunch of different things. But if you're a person, you can be a person who's good at one part of marketing or one part of, communications and storytelling. And unfortunately, especially with us, 5 people work here, right? So we need you to be good kind of at all of those things.
Yeah.
And if that's daunting or that's taxing, and you want to go be a person who just does social media or website, I think that's great. We've got to find a fit for you there, because not every small nonprofit's going to be able to do that with you.
Yeah. You hit on something that I sort of go back and forth over when I think about nonprofit as this living, breathing thing that helps us in so many ways. But there's like the side where you sort of have to be a jack of all trades.
Right.
And yet if I see a job description, like people will send, hey, can you share this with your networks? And I'm looking at the job description. Number one, if you don't have a salary down at this point, we're not passing them along.
Public salaries
have to be a thing.
Yes.
But number two, the job duties, it's almost a red flag to me on some levels, because I know they have to be a jack of all trades. But if I look at a job description and I think, wow, we have 3 contractors to handle the amount of work that's being expected of someone. And then it's like the requirements are that you're just out of college and that they want you with a little bit of experience. They want you with like 25 years of experience at TikTok. But, so I go back and forth over those things and how I'm frustrated with our sector. And I think we're all just trying to do the best thing, and you have to look at it, and you have to also know, I think part of it is you have to be in it long enough to be able to look at somebody and say, hey, 3 of these things on the job description are realistic for you to want from me, but this 4th one we might need to negotiate, right? And we have to get used to, as nonprofit professionals, being able to negotiate stuff like that for ourselves. It's better for the mission if we are able to do that.
But I also think then, as from a leadership perspective, it's also my job to go to our board and go, this isn't realistic. So we either need to be able to expand and split that into 2, or no, we're not going to get as far as we need to go. And then I think that's responsibility for the board of directors, for your funders to agree, to not put so much pressure on your nonprofit staff, no matter what, because to what end, right? And we see that a lot. There's sometimes if you don't make adjustments to some of those things, then you'll have a revolving door of staff or things, and then you're not making progress in your mission anyways. So I think there's a lot of honest conversations that have to go into building a successful nonprofit. And that's really hard because there are a lot of power dynamics when we talk about funding and board of directors and all those things. But I think for me, at least here, I found a place where people are willing to have those conversations or be open about them. And that has really empowered me. And I hope that shows other organizations that it's worth doing, to get into some of the hard conversations of what's realistic and what are we capable of as a team, or what are we capable of adding to teams to make sure they have what they need. But those are all hard. And I would love to see more of that. It would make a better sector overall.
I think I 100% agree with you. And I want to say that one of the things that I have witnessed you being able to do, which I value as an employee within this organization, is whether you're speaking to staff or to stakeholders like board members or even the founders or whatever the case is, you have a very beautiful sense of when to push and when to draw a line in the sand about something and say, this is what we're going to do. Here's my rationale if you need it. But I truly believe that this is the best way forward. And when to say, okay, we are taking ideas. And when it's time for ideas to stop and someone to just call the shots and to be committed and to build a team that's like, yep, that sounds like a good idea. Let's go forward. And because when we're all working on the mission with the same intentions of honoring the mission in the way that we do, if it doesn't work out the way we want it to, it's still okay. It's not it's not like it wasn't worth doing. So I just thought you've always navigated that really well. And I wanted to point that out here publicly.
Recorded. Thank you.
So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit because we're talking about the things that make nonprofit life a hard place to work sometimes. There are also some beautiful things. We'll get to that at the end. I promise you. But
hold
tight. But sometimes, like for example, you were talking about there are some missions I'm better to donate to than to work in. There are some missions I know I would not be able to be that close to that mission. It might impact me directly. It might be something that is triggering. And so I very much support others doing that work. I will donate, but I cannot live with you with that mission. Pediatric cancer is something where I have found I can be here in the difficult times. And so just a few months after you started CKc, I feel like you came into CKc in that scenario. And then a few months after that, you were diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 1 breast cancer. So what has it been like to work in the cancer world while you're going through that, as you're a cancer survivor, how you're moving through that? How do you, that's a new level of complexity and challenge, I'm assuming.
Yes. So my initial response is to make a joke, which is that God heard my overachiever plans, and I had said my plan was to go work as at a cancer foundation, not have cancer,
Right.
but we make plans and God laughs. But I think, yeah, I mean, clearly a curveball in my life I did not see coming. And partially I say that because I had prior to my diagnosis, a cancer scare about 8 months before I started the job. And so all that to say, that's kind of the narrative that I would think about cancer before I worked here too, which is, something seemed wrong. I'm probably overreacting. This is scary. I'm going to the doctor. They're going to tell me I'm overreacting and everything's fine. For me, I had a bit of an issue, which led to some mammograms and then biopsy, and everything came back normal.
Mm-hmm.
How crazy. What a scare.
Yeah.
We move forward. I had even gone for 6-month follow-up exams, I think even still before I started this job, or perhaps when I was interviewing, which is all to say, for most of us, until we have that diagnosis moment, we live in a world where cancer is the scariest thing that could happen medically. And we always just are like, I'm overreacting. Someone's going to tell me it's fine. So about 6 months after I had taken over here, I was still working with my breast surgeon, who is my angel who saved my life. And even at that time, we still were going from a viewpoint of, you don't have cancer, but we should probably go in and do this very small surgery. That pathology is what came back abnormal. And I was just thrown in immediately to, in the most literal way, our world at Cannonball, right? So now my husband and I are sitting in a room and she's telling me about all my paths of treatment. And I thought, oh, she's giving me my options.
Yeah.
And we say that, we say hashtag no more options when kids are out of options. And then I got a genetic test back and needed to change my treatment path. And then, all these things are happening. But the reality for me was that breast cancer is the most funded cancer research in the world. And look what that affords me. That affords me a really early diagnosis, many paths of treatment, and going through treatment and being done within 8 months, I think I was in treatment for. I'm still terrified, honestly. I don't want to relapse. I don't want a recurrence. I don't know what to do there. And what I also don't know what to do with, for the most part, is the idea that I did come up with a genetic marker, which is very under-researched and predisposes me to a higher rate of colon cancer. Has a 50-50 percentage of being passed to my children. And whether they're female, then a higher chance for breast cancer, or for males, prostate cancer. And I have a daughter and son, as you know. So what can I do? I can take action because I'm already here and I'm doing that. And I can understand that as a mom, just as we all would look at this and say, I'm going to do whatever I can, now I really have more skin in that game. And it's really hard. And there's no place I'd rather be. And I sometimes don't know how to explain that, right? This is the most beautiful gift, to be in a world where everyone understood what I was going through, because a good chunk of them had already been through it, or at least we all talk about it all the time. It's really hard, and it's hard to sometimes go be around. Funny enough, it's harder to be around when we're on a tour, and then it's like, well, then that's where the breast cancer patients are. And I'm like, I can go through what we're doing and compartmentalize with our kids all day because they have so fewer options, and it's so different. And to this day, I would take being a cancer patient over being a cancer mom any single day of the week. And so all of those things can push me forward. And sometimes, as you've seen, we're at a conference or we're just at a women's lunch and people start talking about breast cancer. And I'm like, oh, that's me. And then I kind of get shaken in my bubble a little bit. So it's hard. I'm just 2 years out of treatment and past my mastectomy anniversary. And so I don't know what that future holds, but I know I'll keep showing up every single day for as long as I can in this position. And that it's still where I want to be more than anything in the world.
Well, thank you for sharing about that. I know we talked about whether or not you wanted to kind of go there in this.
Sometimes it's hard. I think you don't want to, I think we all have a tendency, I don't want to make this about me, right? And so when you're already at so many times the face of an organization, and we're not talking about pediatric cancer. I'm not a pediatric cancer survivor. I'm a breast cancer survivor. And at the same time, what I do in this job all the time, and every job I've ever had, is ask people to share their story, if they're comfortable or even a little bit uncomfortable, to help other people understand what they're going through. And so how could I not turn around and do the same? And you're always, and then Megan on our team also are so kind to me to go, yes, but that doesn't mean every day is open season on like your speech and your, soapbox, but where I can, when I can, it is so important to me to talk about this because I know that it furthers our mission and it furthers what we're doing. And I think then when I sit down and ask a family who's been through pediatric cancer, I know I'm doing all I can and how I can work and protect people in that same way because I'm going through it in such a vulnerable place too.
Yeah. Well, you're amazing at your job.
Thank you.
And I promised that we would get back around to something hopeful. So I wanted to talk about, you're able to do all of that great work despite having different challenges, personal, professional, just sector-wide, right?
Sure.
So I think another thing that people who spend a lifetime in nonprofit have to do is learn to count the wins. And so I wondered if you could talk, if there are any like top of mind moments at CKc that have been sort of like, wow, this really was a win on that day or for that initiative.
Yeah. So I think for me, when we go back to the idea of like, how do you stay in this work? It's little wins because there are big wins. They come once a year. We fund hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those are big, huge wins. But little wins to me are so much more present. You have to look for them sometimes. And when you do, you find them everywhere. And that's what really keeps me. So for me, anytime I see from time to time, we're able to bring our families and the researchers together. When I see our families and researchers sit down at a table and speak, it's the biggest win of my life. There's nothing that fulfills me more because you're looking at two different sides of the same coin who have, their whole lives are dedicated to this thing. And sometimes those are beautiful conversations with children present. And sometimes those are parents who've lost their child sitting there going, why? Why is there still nothing for this? And I just see the beauty in that so deeply. I think for us, another place where we get to feel a lot of wins is we do get a chance to be creative, and we've been able to kick off different things like the Ripple Effect Luncheon. When I was there that day and saw all those women in the room, I couldn't believe it. It was the biggest win of my life. Like, this is why we're here. And anytime I see somebody who's been donating and made our mission a priority, really click into what we do, really understand what we do, and hear them telling someone else about it.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh,
that's the stuff.
That's a good feeling, because I know then that we're carrying, that ripple forward, that momentum forward. And so for me, those are really big ones. recent one a couple weeks ago, we got to, announce the podcast on the news, and I was able to take my daughter because she was off from camp that day, and like her mind was blown. And that's just fun.
Your kids think you're a celebrity, right?
My kids are confused.
All you do is go to coffee and lunch, and people want to meet with you because you're a celebrity.
Because you can only take your kids to so many things. Right. So I'm like, oh, you don't have camp this day. You can come to the news. Yeah. And that's pretty mind blowing. Yeah. So I think that's fun. And I love seeing them see that like we can take action and we can do something. Like that's a huge win for me too, is that my kids see that when there's a problem, we don't have to have the answer. We just take action. And that they're growing up with that ethos is a big win for me too.
Awesome. Well, add good mom to good boss and other things on your list of beautiful and amazing things about you.
Thank you.
If you want to support CKc's mission to fund innovative research and educate for change, you can make a gift on our website. Dana approves.
I do.
Cannonballkidscancer.org. But if you're ready to be a part of Team CKc and join us in educating for change, you need to share, like, and subscribe.
We know that this is a hard mission because we live it every day. Mm-hmm. And so we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you taking time to learn more about CKc and specifically me today. But we appreciate you joining our fight. It means so much to us. And until next time, I'm Dana Nichols.
And I'm Val Solomon.
And we will CKc you later.
Join us as we transform fear into courage and turn adversity into opportunities for change.
If you want to be involved in the conversations that create change in the world of pediatric cancer, take a moment, share, like, and subscribe.